Hi, and welcome to Elise Talks. Today I want to talk about what I like to call the depression recipe, or maybe I should call it the fighting depression recipe. So, first of all, I want to start with the comment that I am not a doctor and I cannot prescribe or give you medical advice on this. I'm going to simply share some learning and some experience that I've had with depression in my life. As a kid, I grew up with a parent. My mother had some pretty severe depression, and we dealt with that in our home for as far back as I can remember, it was an issue. Even into my adult life, I found myself supporting my mom and being very conscious of watching those cycles in her life, the ups and downs that come along with it. As I got into parenting, one of my children, as they got into high school, began to exhibit behavior that I thought was pretty typical of just obnoxious teenagers. But as time went by and we started to realize it wasn't just a matter of this kid's a jerk, what's wrong with them? I started to realize after exploring some counseling and some other avenues that this child was struggling with depression. These two scenarios looked entirely different from one another. My mom's was that very low, crying in your pajamas till 3 p.m. type of scenario. And my one child was just downtrodden, unhappy, always complaining that they didn't feel good, that they didn't want to go to something because they didn't feel good, that they didn't feel like they could go to work because they didn't feel good, all the time. It was fascinating, and it was a big chasm in experiences to support, to understand, and to see. And then last year myself, I began to find that I wasn't handling the stresses in my life very well. We're in the middle of a pandemic, working in the industry that I'd worked in. I'd been shut down and closed out. There was so much uncertainty what was going to happen with my work in many areas. I also was beginning to deal with my mother, who has now advanced dementia. My kids were struggling. I had siblings that were struggling and family members. I just started to feel like I was overwhelmed, and I found myself feeling angry all the time. I didn't want to lay in bed till 3 p.m. I didn't want to cry all the time. I didn't feel sick and not want to go anywhere. I just felt mad and irritated. This pushed me to work even harder on the things that I call the anti-depression recipe. I felt like I needed to really start watching even more what I was eating, which was really a struggle. I felt like while I exercise every day, I meditate all the time. I try to have positive mindset. Everything I could think of doing, getting outside, trying to walk when the weather wasn't terrible, all these things that I know to be the recipe, right? None of them were working. And I dipped deeper and deeper and deeper into this phase of feeling angry and upset. And like I talk about in one of the stress mindset videos, I got to the point where if my phone rang or a text message came in, I just felt like I just can't deal with that person right now. When I got to work, and I was still working and doing some of the things that I do for one of the companies I consult for, and I've always really loved this job, but I got to the point where I felt like every task that I stared down was feeling more and more overwhelming to me. The thought of I have to spend the next 45 minutes doing this, it was too much. Or I just simply couldn't think, which again is a tricky one for me, not something I'm used to. After some really strong consideration and talking it over with my spouse, I did eventually go into the doctor. Even when I went in, I felt this stigma of what's wrong with me? I have all the answers. I know the recipe. I'm working the recipe. Why do I need to go in and talk to somebody about possibly taking medication? As I got into the doctor's office, and I was even reassuring her that I don't really know that I need medicine. Maybe we should, I don't know what to do about this. I've done counseling even. And it was really interesting because her first inclination was not to push me to take medication. What she simply said to me was, when was the last time you felt like yourself, or like a happy version of yourself? This really created a moment for me of pause, because as I reflected, and this was November, I thought even back to a family reunion we had attended in July, on my side of the family. And I remember thinking the whole time I was there, I just shouldn't be here. I just feel angry at everyone and irritable and like who should even be around me? I need to avoid everyone. It's better that way. And in that moment, reflecting on that feeling and truthfully not remembering when I felt like myself last, I knew that it was time to add to that recipe for myself personally. And I have to admit, even as I took that prescription into the pharmacy, I felt leery and I felt like a bit of a failure. And I didn't really want to do it. But I also realized that I hadn't felt like me in way too long. And it took some time. Didn't make me feel very good at first. I had to work through it. But about 6 weeks later, I said to my husband when I was going in for a follow-up with the doctor, I said, do you feel like you notice any difference? Like, I'm not sure. I can't really tell. Like, I don't feel mad all the time, but I don't know. And my husband said to me, well, you've actually stopped saying, I'm done all the time. And he was right. That was something I would say all the time. I'm done. I'm just done. Further reflection on that, I realized that I was starting to feel like me, the good, happy version of me, the one that I like to be. And I had missed her. It was like finding an old friend that I hadn't seen in a long time. I'm fortunate that I had people around me to support me. I'm fortunate that I know the recipe and I had all those other things in place in my life that I was able to work through that are tools that help. But I share this experience because I want to say a couple of things. First of all, if you feel these things, if you have these feelings, and I want to draw attention to the food just for a second. I had lost 30 pounds leading up to feeling this way. And I was very dismayed at how I felt about food. And I actually had a session with my counselor and I said to him, I don't understand. Like sometimes I look at salad and a chicken breast and it like turns my stomach. And I've always been such a healthy eater. And something he explained to me, which fascinated me to no end, was that when you are struggling, when your brain feels that low, the concept of using energy to break down whole foods it's unappealing. And it isn't unusual at all for your body to say, no, just give me something easy that I can break down and digest in no problem. And your brain kind of forgets that food, you'll just be hungry again. You'll be feeling that depleted low again, like over and over again. It doesn't care. It's just like, that's the easiest thing. So it wasn't even that I was failing. It was that chemically my brain just wasn't handling it. If you feel like the normal things in your life every day they're rolling in at you and you're like, I just can't. If you wake up in the morning after really truly sleeping all night and you're still tired and the thought of getting up and facing your day is too much, please don't hesitate to go and talk with someone. If you can afford counseling, it's great. And I did the counseling for a while before I went and got the medication. But if you are missing you, if you're not that person that you know you are, if you can't find that person, don't wait. And don't rob yourself of any more of that time. Advocate for yourself. Get help. Get medication if you need it. Get yourself into a space where you want to exercise again. I actually got to the point where I, like most days, didn't even really feel like exercising. I was pushing through all these things I didn't want to do, which it wasn't me. That wasn't who I am. If you find yourself living the life that's someone else and it's not you, please go get some help. And don't have any shame about it. And don't worry that it doesn't look like someone else's experience. And don't worry if somebody tells you that pills aren't the answer, or that counseling's not the answer, or that exercise isn't the answer, because everybody's answer is different. And there's no reason why you shouldn't look after you in the best way that works for you. All right, I hope this helps. I hope it's been of benefit. And I just want you to know it gets better. All right? Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.